Good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It's another Sunday evening. It is the 7th of May, 2023, and of course, it's time for our live show. Now, this evening, I want to find out if you are taking part in No Mow May. Excuse me. Basically, for those that don't know, No Mow May is a month where you don't mow the lawn in order to encourage the dandelions and the daisies to grow through to feed the birds. So are you taking part in that? And what other things do you do to encourage wildlife into your garden? But first of all, let's see if we've got anybody out there. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat tonight, talking of wildlife. First of all, we've got Adrian is out there saying hello, good evening to you. We've got Turbo Stream out there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters, good evening to you. Digwell is saying hi all, back in 15 minutes, just sowing the last of the squashes. Philly SBB is out there. Hello, everyone, good evening to you. Ballycillian is saying, hello, everyone. What a beautiful sunny day. Got loads done at the allotment. I'll get into that in a moment. Oracle says, what about the Veg Girl podcast and the lovely friend Stuart Jackson over on the other outlet? I hope you've had a brilliant week, mate. Jenny Hallett, hello, everyone. I hope you are well and having a wonderful weekend. Amazing weather today. I think spring is finally here. I've got to say, the weather all week has been really good up until yesterday. And this morning wasn't great, but it got better. Chili Kate, hello everyone. Hi Richard, joining you from the allotment for the first half, then going home to Chillifield to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Happy wedding anniversary to the Chillies. Hope you are having a great day. Anna Jones is saying, good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Who else have we got? Graham Arnold, evening everyone. Good evening to you. A lot of people wishing the Chillies a happy wedding anniversary. Richard Golding is saying, hello all. I saw my first veggie pod ad on TV today. They're advertising on TV now, are they? I haven't got TV, so I wouldn't know. Hello, great guest. Evening, everyone. I hope you've had a great week. We've had some really weird weather. Torrential hailstones on Friday. Weather is being a bit bizarre, but it's going to get better. That's what I keep telling myself. It is going to get better. Rebecca, good evening. What a lovely evening. Sat in the garden listening tonight. What a lovely way to spend the evening. It definitely has been the evenings for getting outside and doing things, hasn't it, this week? I think, anyway. Ian Suggett, my dad, good evening on this very sunny Sunday. Good evening to you. Somebody in the Facebook group, evening all, very hot here. I may not see who you are in the Facebook group, just the way sometimes Facebook works. If you could just let me know who you are at the end of your comment, that works great. Stuart Jackson has joined us. Evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope everyone is enjoying the sun today. Gary is out there saying hello all. Good evening to you. Scott is out there saying good evening all. Good evening to you. Adrian is saying, I have not cut the lawn since 2008. I just let the sheep out. Yeah, a great way, actually. It's probably the most natural and efficient way to do it. Stuart Jackson says, I am not doing No Mow May, but I do have lots of bird feeders and flowers for the insects. Well, great stuff. Let's get into it. Let's get into No Mow May at that point. So, I did No Mow May last year, and I've got to admit, I'm actually one of these sad people that enjoys mowing a lawn. I don't know what it is, but I just enjoy going around with a lawnmower, get time in the thing to yourself. It's I think, a pretty good job. When I do the allotment, I always stand back and just think, that looks great. I'm really pleased with it. Now, I cannot do No Mow May down on the allotment. The allotment police will not like it. They expect the grass to be kept not so much short, but they don't want to see the dandelions and the daisies, really. So I cannot do No Mow May down on the allotment. Added to that, when I cut the grass, I always use the grass as a mulch on my plants anyway. So for me, No Mow May doesn't work quite on the allotment. But here at home, I did do No Mow May here last year, and I will admit I did see an increase in insects. But what I also found, one, Roxy, my dog, she ended up catching a tick. Now, it may not have been from here, to be honest. It could have been out and about because of the long grass. And she doesn't really I was going to say she doesn't really like the long grass. That's not true. She does quite like the long grass, but I think she prefers to lay down on the shorter grass. Added to that, I've got the chickens and things as well. So what I'm doing instead is I'm just leaving one area to grow, and then I'm going to cut pathways around it. I'm also potting in some wild seeds down one side to help these bees, these insects, the pollinators, to find some food. And I've added a little wildlife pond just using a washing up bowl. Nice, simple and cheap. I've always got bird feeders up. I want to get more bird feeders to bird feeders too. Now, the point of No Mow May, as I said, is to encourage those dandelions, those daisies, those wild flowers to flower, and have wild areas to help the wildlife out. But I got in a conversation just the other day with somebody, and they sort of said they don't like No Mow May for the very simple reason is that it feels like you're putting all this food out and then taking it away come June. And it's much better to have it available all year round, which I thought was a very good point. So let's go to the comments. Turbo Stream is saying it's a lovely day in my home garden today. Not been to the plot this week after a disaster in Pembrokeshire. Too windy for tent camping. Wonder what happened there. I wonder what happened. I feel like there's a story there. Jenny says, I am no mow now until end of September, October. Birds love it. The pollinators, some bees nest in the ground with long grass. We will mow pathways, but that's it. I garden with and for wildlife. So rewarding. You're kind of going along my train of thought as well. So I like the idea of mowing pathways, but I wouldn't let my entire garden go long grass. I want wildlife. Don't get me wrong. I do want wildlife. Kate Spratt has joined. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream says, I mowed the lawn today, so I guess I'm not doing No Mow May. Last year I did it and hated the grass afterwards. June is a better month for my lawn. I've got to admit, I always find that May, I seem to cut the lawn about twice a week when I do it. So, I feel it's the best time, but yeah. Adrian says, I am at the start of isolation. I've just tested positive with COVID. We're out of the COVID emergency now, aren't we? But I hope you are feeling well, Adrian. Please don't overdo it. Hargrave Gas, we've done No Mow May in the past. Our mower broke a week ago and the repairman says he is currently very busy. So it looks like we'll be doing it again this year, although not planned. Well, do you find any difference is what I'm going to ask, or when you had done it in the past, did you notice any difference in your crops? Ultimately, this is what I want to get to, because we want the pollinators to come along and pollinate our courgettes, our tomatoes, and our things like that, and we need them for that very reason. If it's going to help them out, then that's possibly a good thing. Turbo Stream says, the bees like the white clover flowers, so I leave it a few weeks in June. White clover. I mean, clover is a very good plant, actually. If you want to replace your lawn with something, clover is a good alternative. Doesn't need mowing anywhere near. I've got a itchy nose today. Doesn't need mowing anywhere near as much, but does a great job. Anna Jones says, I mowed the lawn today as well, so I'm not doing it either. So that's fine. I do not believe in telling people what they should or shouldn't do. But what I want to know is, are you doing anything to encourage the wildlife instead then? Are you sowing wildflower seeds? Oh, my nose is so itchy. Are you sowing wildflower seeds, or are you putting up areas for wildlife to come in? Turbo Stream, I have plenty of flowers for the insects. Something is in flower for 12 months of the year as I have planted for wildlife. Yeah. This is, again, what I'm trying to get at. I kind of believe that we should have something in flower all year round. And like currently, I've got my apple trees. Some of my apple trees are in flower. My pear trees have gone over. They're starting to produce fruit now. My peaches have produced not many flowers, but we've still got tulips showing themselves. Tulips are edible, so I do grow them for that very reason. Ian Beddoes, a bit too hot in the garden. We'll wait until after sunset. I think, if I remember correctly, he's in Spain at the moment. So that must be nice to have that warm weather. Turbo Swim says, one night in Pembrokeshire, the wind was really bad the next morning and forecast 40-mile-per-hour gusts a week. I still walk to my favourite beach lake. Fantastic. How lovely. Digwell says, remember what Alan Titchmarsh said at his Gardener's World live talk last year? No Mow May is at the wrong time of the year. He did say that, yes, and he wasn't a fan of it. I think quite a few people are not a fan of No Mow May. They say it's the wrong time of year, which I kind of agree. April might be a better time, but I don't think the dandelions and the daisies are in flower during April. But I think there's a lot to be said for it. I remember also Alan did sort of say that not all wildlife likes the long grass. Some of it needs the shorter grass. So that's why I'm leaning more towards having paths as opposed to long grass. Anne Wright is saying, I'm building a wildlife pond and sowing a wildflower corner behind the pond, leaving a no-mow strip around the front of the pond. Yeah, funny enough, that's what I'm more leaning to. I've got an old washing up bowl that I've just sunk in the ground, full of water, and we're going to use that for the frogs. I know Digwell has done something similar to this as well. I'm going to leave that for the frogs and the water. I mean, the best way to encourage any wildlife into your garden or your allotment is to have a pond, a wildlife pond. It will bring in so much more wildlife than anything else. And a washing up bowl is all you need to create this. I'm not allowed ponds down on the allotment, so I can't do it down there. But I have got an area where I built like a bug hotel out of pallets. But a load of stinging nettles have grown around it, and I'm leaving that because I want it to be the wildlife corner, like Anne is saying here. Jenny says there's an absolutely huge difference here doing no mow. More pollinators, hedgehogs loved it, snakes visited, and the frogs enjoyed the shelter from the lawn grass. So there is a big difference for Jenny in doing it. So that's interesting, very interesting. Hargrave Gas, I have 2 wild areas in the garden. Amazed the neighbours haven't complained, but maybe they're happy we are doing our bit for wildlife. I think neighbours are generally more tolerant than we give them. Than we give them. I haven't eaten today. Then we give credit to our neighbours. Sometimes I don't think they want to complain. They just, as long as you're pleasant and polite about it, I don't think they're that fussed. Turbo Stream says, No Mow May seems to be a fad. Perhaps gardens that are bereft of flowers the rest of the year benefit from doing it. That's a very good point. You mean a garden that just has lawn? Perhaps it's more for them to do it. That's a very, very good point, Turbo Stream, actually. And again, this comes back to something we have been, we have been thinking about, is that the flowers are going to be there in our gardens all year round, unless you have just a plain lawn. Stuart Jackson says, I have 3 apple trees one side and lots of open flowers the other side of my garden, so I'm hoping I do enough for wildlife. They still, in my opinion, wildlife still needs somewhere. It's not just about the flowers. The flowers are obviously going to benefit the pollinated insects, but they still need somewhere to go and hide, somewhere to travel around. And little habitats. That's the word I'm looking for, habitats for them to go and live. So it's not just about long grass, it's having areas that they can live. Digwell says the concept comes from America, where May is ideal in most sites. I didn't know it came from America, but that does make more sense. Anna Jones, my garden is mostly a flower garden, so plenty of pollen for the insects until November. Now this has actually got me thinking a lot about it, I've got to say, talking to you guys. I'm glad I haven't recorded tomorrow's podcast yet, because you have really made me think that, having something in flower all year round is going to be better than just having an area of long grass. Jenny says, we have lots of flowers for pollinators, large leaves for shelter, teasel for pollinators, and they make bird baths when it has rained. Shelters for frogs, toddlers, etc. Toddlers? Log piles and sunbathing stones. So a lot of good ideas actually in there. You know, shelters, bird baths, log piles for the beetles. I saw my first stag beetle the other day walk crossing the road. And sunbathing, I hadn't thought about sunbathing stones, but then we do have a patio, so I'm sure they can sunbathe on there. Jenny has a small wildlife pond, bird feeders and drinking stations, no sprays and no nets, etc. So that's also what she does. I'm glad you say no nets, because I've got a problem with nets for that very reason. I once went to this is my old allotment, but I went up there, and as I entered the gate, the woman to the side, she covered the cherry trees over with a net, but a bird had got caught in that net, and I don't know how long it had been there, but it wrapped its foot around this netting. The poor little bird. I had to basically cut the string away to free this bird up, and for that reason, I cannot stand nets. I know there's a lot of reasons that you might want them, unless it's very fine mesh and the nets need to be taut, but I cannot stand nets because of that one little bird. Rebecca says, I kind of believe if we're going to do no mow, then we should do it all year, not just May. As insects start to use a space, then you go and cut it the next month. Funny enough, that's exactly the conversation we've had. It's a bit of a, it's a bit like putting free food on the table one month and then taking it away the next month, isn't it? It's not really ideal. Scott says, I have a wildlife area with wildflowers, then do pockets around the plot of wildflowers in and amongst the crops, plus cut flowers that are mainly single open flowers. Again, these wildflowers, I do think wildflowers are probably the better way. And I'm thinking, I have got some wildflower seeds somewhere, he says, looking around to see where they are, that I'm just going to scatter down. You'll hear about this on the podcast tomorrow because you're giving me ideas. Just down one side of my garden and just let that grow. Hargrave Gas is saying, shelter for frogs I get, but toddlers. Funny enough, that's exactly what I thought. And Jenny says, toad. I typed toad. She meant toad, not toddlers. She goes on to say, bloody auto spell, I must turn it off. How? Yes. And Stuart Jackson, my garden is not tidy, so there's loads of areas for insects and animals. I'm very lucky we have hedgehog, deer, and foxes visiting our garden most weeks. We have to remember not to be so tidy. I agree. I think that's the trouble. Us gardeners tend to try and be tidy. Well, most of them do. I'm not tidy in the slightest. But I do think when we're trying to be tidy, we're taking away all that natural habitat. And like things like when plants not so much die back, but when they die back in the winter, we quickly cut them out. I tend to try and leave them so they got all those little twigs and little bits for them to make their homes. And I saw Gardener's World last Friday, and there was a guy there who did a lot for wildlife, and something he came up with was, I like this idea. He had a plastic tube, and inside that plastic tube, he put corrugated card. And he left this plastic tube. The plastic tube was there to keep the card waterproof. But he left it in a tree. I think might have been an apple tree or something, but somewhere where he knew earwigs would be most of the time. And whenever he had an aphid infestation on some of his plants that he wanted, he would just take one of these plastic tubes over to where the plants were and left it hanging there for a bit and let the earwigs go and deal with the aphid infestation. I thought this was a great idea. Once the aphid infestation had gone, he then took that plastic tube back to the tree. I thought this was a great idea. But I also believe if you have an aphid infestation, the predators are going to come along on their own anyway. Turbo Extreme, I mulch my borders with the weeds I dig up. When I look closely, the ground is teeming with insect spiders. Lots of materials for them to hide in. Yeah, again, this is what we're thinking. We need lots of natural, you go into a woodland, you don't get anybody tidying up the area, and you generally find that you don't get many leads. You generally find in a woodland you don't get many weeds as such, but it is teeming with life. Jenny says we mow the lawn the end of September, October to allow the flower seeds to fall. Then it is left to grow. It doesn't grow much till April/May. My wife's always wanted a meadow, but every time I've tried, it has failed. So I'm trying to think of a way, and I think this area down the side of our garden might be where we do it this year. Digwell says, with the netting, the worst ones for small birds, which are the best for us, are the ones where the cordage is braided and not a single strand. The poor bird gets a claw caught in the fibres. Yeah, that's exactly what I found when I had to rescue this poor bird. I felt so sorry for that, but it still haunts me to this day, even though I rescued it. My lawn is probably 10% of my garden, so practically makes no difference if I mow it. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I mean, again, my lawn is a very small amount of my garden and I'm getting less and less. I have to have a small area of lawn for Amanda to sit on or Roxy to sit on. So I have to have a small amount of lawn, but it's less and less now. Anne says, we had a pond on our old allotment amongst our herb garden. It attracted lots of wildlife and our stone paths were great for lizards to sunbathe on. That's exactly what I want to see. I mean, we get a lot of lizards down on our allotment, including the common lizard. But lots of wildlife on the allotment, but we're not allowed ponds, which I think is wrong. I might try and sneak one in somewhere. My old allotment I had over in Brighton, we managed to get hold of an old bath. And we sunk that into the ground, which was a challenge. Anybody that knows anything about Brighton, we were on the hill and you only get about 30 centimetres of soil before you hit chalk. And the chalk is like the bedrock. So it wasn't easy. We had to chip away at the chalk to get this bath fully submerged. It wasn't easy, but we got there in the end. But this bath, it was a big old bath. The amount of dragonflies and other insects that thing brought in within just a short amount of time made it worthwhile. And that's why I am sticking in a wildlife pond in my garden here. Bunny Cillian, it's great being untidy at the plot to create wildlife signs, but you have to remember it also creates a slug and snail heaven. So here's my thought on that. You are correct. It does create an area for slugs and snails too, but they are wildlife. They are part of the ecosystem. And this is why I like having these wildlife areas. But the thing is, if you're encouraging wildlife, you're also encouraging the birds in. And the birds, I find, will eat the slugs and snails too, especially the little thrushes. We often look out in our garden, we see a collection of thrushes and starlings and blue tits just on our lawn, just enjoying themselves, basically munching on things. But they go on and eat the slugs and snails. I do not get many problems with slugs and snails except in the greenhouse because the birds can't get in there. I don't use any pellets or anything at all anymore. So you've got to take the rough with the smooth. If there's a lot of slugs and snails, then eventually the birds will come along, is my theory. Turbo Stream says, I do let my weed flowers go to flower too. Yeah, I think that is very, very important. If you can, the trouble with an allotment is you get inspected, and if they see weed flowers, they don't like it. That's why I think you need to have a very distinct wildlife area. Digrat says, did you know that aphid babies are born pregnant, full of live babies? So an aphid is carrying her daughters and her granddaughters, and they are all females with no need to mate. Is that like trilobites in Star Trek? I did not know that about aphids, so that's why they are so difficult. Stuart Jackson, if you want a wildflower area, sow yellow rattle in pots, then plant them out when they grow to a good size. Then the following year, add wildflower seeds to the area. Well, this is a good advice. Thank you, Stuart, because I have sown in several areas wildflower seeds, and I followed the instructions to try and get the soil poor. I covered it over for a year. I've grown turnips or something like that to try and use up some of that nutrients, and I could not get the wildflower seeds to germinate at all. I'm hoping this year is going to be a bit different with the area that I am building, but I'll take that. I'll try the yellow rattle or something too. Totally stream. I'm creating the flower bed on my plot too. It gets easier, it gets bigger each year as I plant my self-sown seedlings and flowers. You know, I mean, I'm all for veg growing. You know, that's all I really do. And I'm only looking at encouraging the pollinators to benefit my veg growing. But you know what? It's what everyone does. Anna Jones says, if you can only plant a few flowers, plant blue ones. Bees and hornets seem to prefer blue to other colours, which brings me actually on to something else I was going to mention. Blue flowers. Thank you, Anna, for bringing it up. I've got comfrey growing down on my allotment. When that flowers, it brings in a lot of pollinators. I've also been sowing borage as another alternative, which again, blue flowers bring in lots of pollinators. Also, borage is edible. Comfrey we can use for fertilizers. So win, win, win. Again, I'm a big fan of trying to grow things that we can use as well. Oh, crikey, lots of comments. So Belly has a point about the slugs. My garden is jam-packed with them. Encourage your birds in. Get the birds in and they will take care of it. Yellow rattle stops the grass from growing. Also, the poorer the soil, the better. I've tried that and I've really struggled with it. Ballycillian, I have a 6-foot pond on the allotment and edged with wildflowers. All my fruit trees have hanging bird feeders, but the veg beds are kept tidy so not to invite slugs. Excellent. And Jenny says, we have a good range of slugs. Some who munch my plants, some that eat the dead foliage, and some who prey on other slugs. Often the good guys get killed off. We have them all and they can stay. You know, Jenny's very much a wildlife gardener, I'm getting the impression, and that is always good to see. Scott says, I see lots of slugs and snails on my allotment, but also lots of birds and don't get much damage. I know the birds are doing their jobs as I find piles of empty shells in the wildlife area where they have used the stones to bash them open. That's always fascinates me. I used to also get quite pleased when I would hear one of my chickens just munch and crunch a snail. Satisfaction is probably the wrong word to use, but you know what I mean. It's doing the job for me and feeding themselves. TurboStream says, I scattered some of the borage seed from the supporters club recently, both at home and the allotment. Hopefully they will provide some good borage seeds. Borage can also be used to make fertilizers too, believe it or not, up there with comfrey. Digwell says, I just scattered my wildflower seeds, no prep, no raking in, mimic nature. This year I have had many perennials grown from last year's, plus a flush of self-seeded annuals. Fantastic. And Stuart Jackson says, bees don't see the colours we see. Remember, the bees need open and small flower heads. Blue and yellow are good for bees. One of the children told me. This is it, where we learned from school. Now, talking of all this wild stuff, where's that video gone? I have been sent 2 videos, but I've just seen one of them is missing. So I'm going to show you the first one. This one is a little bit tricky because the video file was, the video image was quite small, but bear with it and I'm sure you'll get it.
Hi Richard and everybody, thought I'd show you what I do in my garden for wildlife. Seems it's this week's topic. So first of all, one of the big things I do are feed the birds. Got various bird feeders up and around the garden, so I'm always feeding those. Lots of bird feeders around, and we do get quite a lot of birds. Another thing I do is use bird boxes. Now I'll just be a bit quiet because up there we actually have babies nesting in that one. So it's behind this honeysuckle, so I think they're really liking it. So that's the babies up there. Also got another bird box at the end there, and I think we have got visitors, so also good. I've got lots of little bug hotels around the garden as well, and they're always used, lots of things in there. This is also our pond project, which we're working on at the moment. It's not quite finished, but we're still working on that, and I'm hoping lots of wildlife come. We've also just spotted newts have moved in already, so that's good news. I'm also a big flower fan, as you know, and that helps the birds, the bees, the insects, everything. So I plant loads and loads of flowers. This is another little bug hotel that I've got down here, and lots of visitors use that, which is great. Then down here, this is at the bottom of my garden, this is the wildlife pond, and this has solely been set up just for wildlife. Now we've got loads of frogs and stuff. In fact, there is a frog just there as I speak. Look, enjoying it. So this is all for wildlife. I've got newts down here and frogs. It's a bit weedy, as you can see there, look, but it's all just for wildlife. Lots of tadpoles in here as well. I don't know if you can spot them. Look, I'll try and get in close. But loads of tadpoles in this pond. Put a few lily pads as well. Little frogs. So this is also my squirrel calf. He comes every day. I can't get rid of him, and he eats all my stuff, so I put stuff in there for him, and it keeps him away from the stuff I don't want to eat. And we've made a good deal between us. Also got another little bird feeder down here, which the birds often use. And up here at the bottom of the garden is a huge oak tree, which the jay absolutely loves. So that's why we keep that for him. And lots of wildlife use that.
That was from Rebecca. What a lovely, lovely video, I've got to say. She does... She has just, sorry, I sent it so small I didn't realise. It's all right, these things happen. I did my best, but if I tried to load it up, it went pixelated. So I kept it that size to try and keep it like that. But you know, what a great amount of wildlife and little subtle things. I liked your birdhouses and things that were just subtly there and blended in to try and encourage all this wildlife. I thought it was great, absolutely brilliant. Rebecca, I don't know if you are on Facebook, but if you want to pop that video in the Facebook group, I'm sure everyone would love to see it as well, if you can, that is. If not, I could do it for you, thinking about that. What else have we got? Right. Scott is here. I like oxeye daisy, great wildflower, and has the benefit of being edible. Absolutely. This is where I was hoping we were going to go down, the edible flowers that also encourage our wildlife or are good for wildlife in too. Oxeye daisies is a great choice. Scott says, I watched a jackdaw shuffle a stone around the right way, then it walked away with it and smashed 10 barrels out of a snail. But nature can be nasty. I won't tell you the stories of things I've seen nature do, but it can be nasty, but it's natural. Turbo Stream, I had to dig up a load of self-sown oxeye daisies today. They will take over the garden. Plenty left though. There you go, Turbo Stream. Off them round on your allotment site. See if anybody would have them to encourage the wildlife. Ballysin says, no ponds allowed on my old plot, so I built a raised pond using an old plastic water tank with ramp to give wildlife access. Told the council ponds are in the ground. Mine was a water feature. It worked. Yep, I would love to be able to do that, but they don't allow any water features on our allotment at all. Jenny says, that is a great video, lovely garden and great for wildlife. It really is. Stuart Jackson, we had the same problem at school with wildflower seeds. That's why we have started sowing in paper pots, so the children can just pop the paper pots straight in the soil. I might try that, to be honest. I really might try it to do that. Digwell says it's freezing a lot this week. I am seeing there is a low signal here for some reason. What's this sound on the phone? Yeah, God, that's not normally that though. I see a tower out or something, so apologies for that. Digwell also says that is a lovely video. Rebecca says, oh, I'll try a bit rubbish when it comes to putting a video in a Facebook group. People will love it. Honestly, people will love it. Jenny says, plant decent-sized plug plants in the lawn for meadow area. The grass roots will be too much for a seedling. Yeah, that might be a way forward. I'm going to dig out a lot of my wildflower seeds and see where we can we can pot them, but plug plants. I do like growing plug plants these days. Stu Jackson, lots of wildflowers are edible. Even stinging nettles can be turned into a very tasty soup. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I do grow stinging nettles, and well, I don't grow them. I've left a patch for stinging nettles. They're great for butterflies, aren't they? Obviously, we don't really want to encourage the cabbage white butterflies if we can help it, but yeah. Rebecca says thank you for your kind words, everyone. You are welcome. Now, I was sent another video, which I did upload to StreamYard, but it's not there for some weird reason. I'm just going to go double check. But luckily, because it was sent to me via Facebook, I can probably play it on my phone. So what I'm going to do is, high technology going on here. So let's tap play.
So I know we were talking about No Mow May and how some people are doing it.
Oh, there we go. Hopefully this is going to work. Oh, it's... Come on. Oh, hang on. There we go. He says. He says, oh, come on. Right, I'll try that again. I will try that again a little bit later on. I think it's just, for some reason, the signal is low tonight. I think it's just buffering. But that was from Kate. It sent an absolutely lovely video of what she was doing for No Mow May. I really, really don't understand why that's not up there. Anyway, let's carry this on. Jenny says, if you're not allowed a pond on the allotment, which is a ridiculous rule, can you make a bog garden as beneficial to wildlife? Lovely to look at, and you can grow some edibles like a watercress. Win-win. I might try that. And see if we're allowed, but I'm not sure. I've got to try and do something. I mean, I've got some wasabi as well I'm growing this year, so I've got to try something like that. Idaho Garden Girls joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. And Stuart Jackson says, stinging nettles are good at this time of year. Just pick the top 4 leaves. They taste the best. We are hoping to make some this week at Forest School. I might try that, actually. Yeah. Jenny, some sites do it for health and safety. Kids falling in, talking about why we're not allowed ponds, etc., etc. Turbo Stream says 144 DPI. I'm just thinking, I'll check the settings. High definition, yeah, that's good. And yeah, that should be okay. Yeah, I've got the warning that the signal is low up here, so I'm guessing that is what's going on. And as normally, it never lets me down. If we were 5 meters that way, it might be better. I'm just going to give this video another try. Here we go.
Hi guys. So I know we were talking about.
Right, I'm going to give this video a try. See if we can get it to play.
No Mow May and how some people are doing it and not.
No, come on. No.
You can see I am a huge fan of dandelions. I think they're absolutely fantastic. But I'm doing something slightly different from No Mow May, and that is actually leaving a section of my lawn to go wild. And that's going to be a permanent thing. So I've actually planted a load of wildflower seeds. And so while I'm going to be moving sort of around those edges there, this section here is just going to be one wild meadow right in the centre of the lawn. And it is starting to come to life. We've got some borage there coming along. As you can see, we've got a little critter there. So I think this is how I'm going to go forward with it, rather than leaving the whole thing to go wild. Just
buffering again. But Digwell said, save it for next week. Something to look forward to. Just a green blob at the moment. Yeah. Sorry. That was from Kate Spratt. So sorry. I don't know what has happened again, but it is up. It should be uploaded and it's not. Good point, Digwell. Shame they can't rule a safe, secure pond. Talking about the pond. Yeah. Digwell is right. Save it. I'll save it for next week. I will do it. I really don't know what happened to that. Jenny says I can't make it out, Richard. Yeah, right. We'll save it for next week, and hopefully the signal will be better as well. Scott says a good recipe to do with the kids with nettles is nettle gnocchi. Easy to make, and shaping it is like playing with Play-Doh. Scott, how do you make nettle gnocchi? I've done pumpkin gnocchi. That was delicious. Is it a very similar thing? Now, we were talking about edible plants that encourage wildlife, and Digwell has said dill, fennel, coriander are great for attracting parasitic wasps. Yeah, I think you've told me that before about fennel and what have you. But parasitic wasps are, of course, a real a thing that we need in everybody's garden, isn't it? I tell you what, shall we have a quick look at some of the photos that have come in this week? Because there's been a really good collection again, as always, posted in our Facebook group. Again, I've only chosen one from each person, but please do keep posting your photos in the group. Now, as we were talking about wildlife, this is Scott's wildlife area, a lovely little pond. Long grass and the orchard, what looks like to be an orchard in the area as well. Absolutely fantastic. Next, Ian Beddoes is looking at these oranges and lemons and wondering whether to harvest them. Now, Ian is in Spain, where oranges and lemons are in abundance. Lucky guy. Could do with some of that weather right here today, couldn't we? Jenny has added this polytunnel or tomato grow house to her garden in order to, I guess, grow more tomatoes or something. Well, you're going to be growing inside that, Jenny. Let us know in the comments. Kate, this is her plot shot. The first of the month, we take a shot of the allotment and see how it looks throughout the year. This is a plot shot throughout the year. Looks great, doesn't it? Stuart has got his Supporters Club gift pack. Here we go. These are members of our Supporters Club. I send these out every month, and they can be sown that very month. There's cabbage, French beans, pumpkins, thyme, courgettes, and runner beans. Now, Anne said last week she uses different colour pots and different shapes for different varieties. And here you can see green pots are one variety of tomato, brown pots are another variety, black pots are another variety, and then there's the square ones as well. So 4 different varieties that we can use. Kate has been making some dandelion honey, which is, I made a video about this during lockdown. Absolutely delicious and such a good way. If you can't have bees, a good way to make some honey. Stephen has sent in this plot photo as well. He's got a very small plot over in Lancing between myself and Brighton. Overlooking the sea. Beautiful plot and plenty of wildlife going on around that. But as you can see, it's looking great. Matthew has had this little helper down on the allotment, a lovely little red-breasted robin. Haven't seen our one for a while. We used to have one come and visit every year, but haven't seen him this year. I hope he's okay. Got to do our best to encourage the wildlife in, haven't we? Now, Digwell sent in this plot photo from his allotment. Again, looking so full of plants and growing, isn't it? It's quite a great sight to see. So please do keep sending those photos in. I love seeing them every time. You can email me, richard@adventuregroundpodcast.co.uk, post them in our Facebook group, and send them to me via social media. Excellent stuff. Scott says, yes, very similar. Making this is talking about nettle gnocchi. You just blanch the nettles cool and chop it up or puree it like you would with the pumpkin. I will give that a try. Jenny says all herbs that flower are great for pollinators. Rhubarb great for shelter for frogs. Sweet potato and squash vines provide safe shelter and cooler conditions for frogs, etc. Bean flowers for bumblebees. Funny enough, my rosemary and things like that are in flower at the moment, so they are going to be helping our bees out as well. You don't always think about that, do you? You don't always think that these things are going on and going to be helping these things out. Stuart Jackson says, Richard, can you repost the honey video recipe? Thank you. Yes, I will do. I have to dig it out. I will post it in the Facebook group. I will dig it out. It does date back to 2020 when we were in lockdown. So I remember doing it. It would have been 3 years ago, almost to the day. Jenny says, new greenhouses, temporary shelves as the main greenhouse is full to brimming. Then it will be used for some of my melons. Yes, I'm starting to move my plants out of the kitchen windowsill now. Actually, have got. There was a question came up in the group this week as well. I think it was from Scott, if I'm not mistaken, asking if anybody has actually planted some of his tender plants outside. And I haven't actually planted my tomatoes, but I put a couple of tomato plants still in their pots just outside a few days ago to see how they would do. They seem to be survived, so I've moved all my tomato plants outside, but I am keeping a close eye on the weather. I might plant some of my tomato plants tomorrow, but I'm keeping a close eye on the weather to see if it will survive. Very, very important to keep a close eye on the weather, of course. And some of the extras will, well, if the ones that are planted out die, we've got backups is the way I look at it. Always try and keep backups just in case. Digwell says to Stuart, it's called Let's Make Some Dandelion Honey. That's the video on YouTube. Yes, let's make some dandelion honey. Absolutely delicious, if I remember that. When I made that, it really was. Digwell says, my chilies and tomatoes have been outside for 2 weeks now. Well, completely outside, not in a cold frame or anything like that. And I feel it's safe for tomatoes. Chilies I'm still a little bit hesitant about, but 2 weeks outside, good going. Scott says, yes, that was me. I've popped some outside now in the pots to see how they get on. Yes, it's definitely getting there. I feel the weather is definitely getting there. It's still, for me, a little bit early to do any of my pumpkins or beans outside, but I've started sowing beans. I've started sowing squash, courgettes, pumpkins, etc. In fact, in about 10 minutes, I'll do the grow along video, which is a pumpkin. I know I said I was going to do beans. I'm going to do runner beans next week, but I decided to do a pumpkin for a very special reason, and you'll see why when that video comes along. Digler says, yes, his chili plants and tomato plants are outside with no protection. Yeah. I do think we are getting better weather. There's still a risk, of course, of frost, but I think it's highly unlikely. That being said, I think it was last year we had a frost at the end of April because my pear tree was doing really well. The frost came along and killed the flowers off and I got no pears. This year already, I can see some little fruitlets. I'm going to have to thin them out if they carry on the way they are going. But I think we're going to get lots of pears on the pear tree this year. Rebecca says, wasps have a terrible reputation, but also incredibly important pollinators. I've heard very good pollinators for figs. Yes, they are. And actually, that brings me up to something I did want to mention, is that we often, or to the untrained people, shall we say, they often, when we hear about pollinators, they often think of the honeybee or any bee for that matter. But actually, there are a great number of insects that do pollinate our plants, wasps being one of them. I believe even dragonflies and other flying insects will pollinate a large number of our plants, not just bees. And we want to encourage them all to do that job. Jenny says, I have one pepper and one aubergine in the polytunnel to see how they get on. I've planted out broccoli, dill, Brussels, radishes, beetroot, potatoes, peas, cabbage and kales. Safe and steady. Yeah, I put a video up. I don't know if anybody has seen it. I put a video of my allotment tour and you'll see the potatoes are growing really well despite the couch grass, but then we're getting on top of that now. But the potatoes are up. We've got Brussels sprouts in the ground. We've got cabbages. Here at home, I've got cabbages, cauliflowers, Brussels sprouts, got onion, garlic, carrots, beetroot, spinach, celery. What else have we got? We've planted some beans in the veggie pod. I can't think what else we got. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot going on, I've got to say. Spinach at the moment, we're getting so much spinach. I'm looking for spinach recipes, to be honest. I did do some last week in like a bechamel sauce, like a spinach and cream, I think it was. Cream spinach is the word I'm looking for. That's it. Absolutely delicious, but so much spinach at the moment. Digwell says wasps pollinate more than bees. A very good point. They certainly do that. And Turbo Stream says Digwell's a special microclimate in the Vale, weeks ahead of my in Brummingland. I was thinking he's actually a bit further ahead than me here, because we did have freezing temperatures a couple of weeks ago. They are, I was looking at the temperature for the rest of this week. They do seem to be staying above sort of 8 degrees. So tomatoes should be okay in that temperature, but who knows? It can all change. Digwell says less smoke as well where he lives. Indeed, less smoke. Stuart Jackson says, this is what I teach our children. Every insect has a reason for being here. We need them all in one way or another. I agree. Completely agree. We do need them all in one way or another. And again, I don't like to kill even slugs and snails, because I do think they are part of the ecosystem. You take away the slugs and snails, you take away the food that birds might eat. Hedgehogs do eat slugs and snails as well, but they don't eat a huge amount. It's just a part of their diet. That being said, I haven't seen the hedgehogs for a while, thinking about it either. And one of the worst things I ever did for nature, and I don't regret doing this, but one of the worst things I did was take down the ivy that we had growing in our back garden. The ivy was huge. Anybody who remembers it will remember it was just huge, and it just didn't go in with what I was doing. And plus, it was a lot of work to try and maintain. I'm hoping the grapes that we've planted in the place are going to take over once they get established, as well as the blackberries and the tayberries. But I'll be honest, the ivy, it just got too big to manage. Rebecca says the King's Coronation Keys recipe has spinach in it. I can confirm it's very tasty. Had some yesterday. Yes, you are right. I kept meaning to look up this Coronation Quiche recipe to see what was in it. Has it got asparagus as well? Can anybody let me know what is in the King's Coronation Quiche recipe so I can hopefully cook it tomorrow? Because I've got a lot of eggs, I've got a lot of spinach, I've got a lot of asparagus, I've got a lot of rhubarb already at the moment. Scott says, with figs, it's fig wasps. I think they lay their eggs in them and pollinate them at the same time, but get trapped in there. I think I remember reading that somewhere. I'm not sure on that. But I'll be very interested in that if that is the case. I love figs. I used to, when I visited Canterbury in a park, there used to be this huge fig tree that just always would have loads of figs on it. And you could take a few if you were hungry as well, and they did the most beautiful figs. But I do have a fig tree at the front on the hope it's going to produce some figs, but it hasn't done for a number of years yet. There's still time. We've just got to keep looking after it. Jenny says, last year I had wasps in my greenhouse. They didn't bother with me, and they were hunting the bugs. When I watered and I added water in the pots for them, it's like they knew I wasn't a threat and worked with me. I do believe actually that even bees will work like that. If they know you're not threatening them, they will leave you alone. But if you threaten them, and if you act, or what's the word I'm looking for? Give off the smell, I guess. The pheromones. That's it. Pheromones that you're going to attack them. That's what they're going to react to. Turbo Stream says, I've never seen a bird eat a slug. They always seek out the worms. I've definitely seen it. Generally, it's the smaller ones, the smaller birds, the thrushes, that tend to eat them. But they tend to eat the smaller slugs. It's the larger slugs that, of course, can be a problem. Now, Digwell's found this recipe out for me. 125ml of milk, 175ml of double cream, 2 medium eggs, 1 tablespoon of chopped fresh tarragon, salt, pepper, 100 grams of grated cheddar, cheese, 180 grams of cooked spinach, lightly chopped 60-gram cooked broad beans or soya beans. Fantastic. I will be making that tomorrow. Seems quite relevant, doesn't it? Spinach, cheese, tarragon, eggs, cream, and broad beans, I think. I will be doing that tomorrow, to say the least. Hargrave Gas. My chickens love a tasty slug. Mine do indeed. When well, I do find the bigger ones, they're not so much. It's the smaller ones they tend to go to. Stuart Jackson says, birds will only eat worms and snails. Even my chicken don't like big. Have you got chickens again, Stuart? I didn't think you had any. Or are we talking on the school? Digwell says, when you waft your arms around with a wasp, it sends out pheromones to call in other wasps to help him. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. It's the same with bees as well. If you waft them around, then they will send out pheromones and likely to attack, because you're getting. They sense you, don't they? Same as dogs. They sense you when you're doing up to no good. I often sit in my garden drinking my morning coffee, watching the bees go from flower to flower. Best time of the day. I agree. I do go out in the garden in the morning with my coffee, let Roxy out there, do a bit of gardening and take in the wildlife that is going on. Best time of the day. I'm actually really enjoying it. I'll probably spend about an hour every morning in the garden doing some gardening before I go to work. And I tell you what, it really does set you up for the day. Jenny says, I wish gluten-free pastry was good enough to make a nice quiche. Digwell challenge. Could you do a pastry-free quiche? Or crustless quiche instead? Send all your slugs to Heston Blumenthal so you can use them in his slug porridge. Is it slug or snails? I have eaten snails before. They're all right. They're a bit like, if you eat mussels, they're a bit like mussels, I guess. And not something I would choose to eat. It was a bit of a dare, and they've been cleaned. But yeah, is it slugs or snails? Margaret says, what time is lunch tomorrow then? Not sure yet. Turbo Stream says, I have some mahoosive slugs at home. Would need a wild boar to get rid of them. Just go out there regularly and pick them and put them on a bird table for the birds. Bees will go out their way not to sting you. Bees just want to be left alone, as most bees will die if they sting you. Exactly right. That's why I tend to just leave them. They're not doing me any harm, so I will leave them. Now, I did say we have got a grow along. This video will be coming out later, and I did change to what I'm going to be doing. There's a very good reason for this. You may know where I get this inspiration from, but let's have a look at this grow along. Oh, a little bit wet out there today, but I'm in the greenhouse, and I have actually just been watching Charles III's coronation, and I thought we might as well sow some seeds to celebrate this as part of our grow along. And to me, it seemed like there's only one seed that fitted the bill, and that is a pumpkin called Crown Prince, which is one of my favourite pumpkins, it has to be said. It's absolutely delicious. So what I thought I'd do, we'll have a bit of fun with this in this grow along. Don't forget to share your tips on how you grow pumpkins down in the comments below, so anybody else can see them too. And what I thought we'll do is we're going to sow 2 pumpkin seeds. As you can see here, just nice plump seeds. These actually came from Seedy Sunday, an event I go to, and these have been saved seeds. And what I thought I'd do, we've got 2 pots here. I filled up with a coir compost. I've added a few fertilisers and perlite, particularly Growmore and Blood meal, or bone meal, sorry, into the mix so that they've got a bit of feed with them. Luckily, when they're seeds, they don't need much feed, but as they grow on, they will need a bit of food. What I find with pumpkins is they grow quite quick, so I generally don't sow them till May because I don't want them hanging around taking up space. They can be in the greenhouse for a little bit, but soon they will get bigger and bigger and need to go outside. And for me, around the middle of May, when plants can start going outside. So as I said, we're going to have a bit of fun with this. We have got 2 labels, and one is going to be called Camilla. The other is going to be Charles, just as a bit of fun. And all I'm going to do is take the seed and just slide it into the soil, about 1 inch deep, or 2.5 centimetres deep. Big seeds, so they should do okay. And the same with Charles, both go in there. We'll just firm the soil down around it, and then we will leave it in this greenhouse in a tray where it will germinate. Now, like most cucurbits or cucumbers or anything in the squash family, it's best to water from below. So put the water into a tray and let the water soak up through the compost. Reason for that is that they suffer from stem rot, many of the plants in our family. So a bit of water on the stem could lead it to rot away and you end up losing your plants. We're not going to do that. As I say, we're going to let it suck it up from underneath. We will plant these out at a later date. As I say, once they germinate, in about 2 weeks, I reckon they will germinate, and about a week after that, they probably, because they grow so quick, a week or 2 after that, they can go outside. And for me, where I tend to grow my pumpkins is in compost bins. What I find by growing them in compost bins is that they actually tend to use the area that the compost bin is in as a growing space, but it tends to use the nutrients from the breaking down material as well as the heat and produces some good pumpkins. I always do this, and I've actually set beds up for this specific reason. Now, once they are planted and growing, it's just a case of looking after them like any other plant. Water them regularly, make sure they never dry out, and make sure to feed them regularly. I personally just use a tomato feed, and I find that is good enough for them. Obviously, being in the compost bins are going to suck up all those nutrients from inside as well. Now, if you want to grow the big pumpkins, which Crown Prince isn't the big ones, these are the most delicious ones, you do want to limit to 1 or 2 fruits per plant. I don't bother with that. I just let them grow, and whatever we get is what we get. So there we go. We've just got to wait for these to germinate. I'm pleased to say that the sweet corn that we sowed last week is showing signs of germination. So that is looking absolutely fantastic. And I think next week we are going to sow some runner beans just to keep up with everything that we are doing at the moment. It's all full steam ahead and it's a great time. Right, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave your pumpkin growing tips in the comments down below, and I'll see you again next time. So there we go. Charles and Camilla are planted. As I said, I just want to have a bit of fun with those. I was going to do runner beans. We're going to do runner beans next week. But pumpkins, why not? Why not indeed? So get sharing your pumpkin growing tips. Now, we're talking about Digwell and Heston Blumenthal snail porridge. It was snail porridge, yes, I remember it well. It's not something I would choose to eat, but if you are hungry, it's a food source. Jenny's asking, has anyone spent any time in the garden or veg patch at night? It is amazing and such a different feel to the place. Nighttime wildlife is also amazing. Moths are also great pollinators. Yes. So I actually have a hot tub. I set it up a couple of weeks ago in my garden, and I will actually go out in the evening, sit in my hot tub. Helps my headaches, to be honest. But I will sit in the hot tub and I will take in all the nature and the wildlife that comes in at that time. I was in there till about 9:30, 9:45 the other night, and I'm watching all these sort of birds go home to roost, and all the moths come out and all the other insects. So yes, I know exactly what you are talking about. And a hot tub, I've got to say, hot tub is just a great way to spend time in the garden as well and take in what you want to see. Scott is saying, oh, hang on. Scott is saying a gluten-free pastry. I think it all depends on what gluten-free flour you use. I find Dove Farm to be the best, and the self-raising one even for pastry. I've got no experience with gluten-free, to be honest with you. So I cannot help you there. Jenny says, I sewed Crown Prince on Friday and said about King Charles. Great minds think alike. I've got to be honest. I think it was Steve Digwell who posted a picture of Crown Prince in the Facebook group that, I'll be honest, gave me the idea. I'd actually already sown some Crown Prince pumpkins, but I had 2 left over, and I just thought, let's go on Charles and Camilla and grow those ones for the grow along. And they're potentially, well, as I said, they're going to go down on the allotment. If they both grow, they're going to go down on the allotment. They're going to go in those sort of composting areas. The composting beds that I've built to rot stuff down and grow pumpkins in. And I think I said in that video, I always grow my pumpkins in somewhere in like compost bins and what have you. One, because as the material is rotting down, it creates a bit of heat, which your pumpkins like. Pumpkins can also use those nutrients to grow, and it uses that dead space, that compost space, to actually turn into a productive area, which is something I do like as well. So yeah, I know I haven't seen Ian tonight, but I know he did that one year after hearing me talk about growing pumpkins in the compost bin, and went and done it himself, and has loved it ever since. So that's my biggest advice, or my biggest tip when it comes to growing pumpkins: grow them in a compost bin or something like that if you can. The stately homes, they would actually grow or dig a trench, fill it up with the rotting material, and then cover it back over for their pumpkins, also for their beans and stuff as well. And they would also cover the area with weed suppressing membrane and grow through that for all that heat. So yeah, lots of that's my tips on growing pumpkins, but I'd love to hear anybody else's. As I said, I am putting these videos out on their own standalone videos for people to share their own tips with as well. Just because I was making a video anyway, it just seemed to make sense to put it out as its own stand video. Got to think about feeding that YouTube meter, haven't we? Anybody that does this will know what I'm talking about. Right, 7:10. We have got about 20 minutes left of this show. Still got tomorrow off. This is a great thing. I'm not on call this weekend. I've actually got tomorrow off work. I'm just thinking, what's the weather going to be doing tomorrow to work out if I can actually do any gardening. Let's have a look. So it looks like it's said, from 10 o'clock it's going to rain. So I'm going to have to get up early and do gardening in the morning in order to catch up or get everything done that I want done tomorrow. Well, I'm looking forward to spending quite a bit of time pricking out and potting on a lot of our plants. Jenny says, I have one digwell, great for some moss as well. All fun with nighttime coffee. What have I missed? Oh, Digwell says, if you have an ultraviolet light torch, you will find loads of slugs. I agree. I think if we go out at night, you always find loads of slugs and snails. And it's surprising just how many there are, especially if it's rained during the day and it's just stopped raining and it's sort of warm, but you get those slugs and snails just come out. I know they are the most complained about pest and disease, but you know what? We've got to live with them. We've got to deal with them. Digwell says every day is a bank holiday here. Indeed, it is for him. He's very, very lucky. I'm looking forward to retirement when I'm able to retire, because I will spend my entire time down on the garden. Turbo Stream says, we are due another wet day tomorrow. Our allotment has a coronation open day too. I'm surprised that our allotment hasn't done more of this, because we know old Charlie boy is really into his gardening and organic garden particularly. So I thought it was a good idea to sort of celebrate this. But yeah, another wet day tomorrow. Not looking forward to it. I've got to say though, the weather, this week has been so good. I've been able to finish work pretty early every day this week. I've been down the allotment every evening before I come home, and I've just got a lot of the weeding done. It has been great. This rain is obviously going to encourage all those weeds to grow again, but I find, and this brings me up to what I want to talk about next week, I find that by spending a little bit of time every day on the allotment, I'm able to keep on control of it. It's my time-saving tip, I guess. And next week, what I want to talk about, or what I want you guys to share, is some of your own time-saving tips. So get your thinking caps on. Get thinking of your time-saving tips ready for next week. And of course, if you've got videos or photos you can send in, that would be great as well. Rebecca says we have a heavy rain all day. Is that today or tomorrow, Rebecca? Let me get my words out. Is that today or tomorrow that you are having heavy rain? Today, I mean, I was expecting rain. When I got up this morning, it was overcast. I went down the allotment and built my bean supports, actually. Built my bean supports out of the hazel sticks from the hazel tree that I grow, which is great because it's recycled or reused or cost me nothing effectively. But it got warm. It got really, really warm down there. And then in the afternoon, the sun came out, which is absolutely fantastic. Jenny, yes, I've just hit the live. Great live tonight, guys. Really enjoyed it. Yes, please do. I forget to say this last couple of weeks. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Give us a notification so that you know when we go live. Really does help. So please do smash that like button. Digwell says, well, that has cheered me up, guys. Not just checked my weather for tomorrow. Rain, rain, and more rain. Well, it's a good time for me. If it's raining, I'm going to be in the greenhouse getting a lot of my plants prepped, ready to go on. Idaho says, yeah, I have to keep on top of it every day to keep the weeds at bay. Yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? Rebecca says, tomorrow it's been the hottest day this year for us, a crazy 18 C. It was 17 degrees C here today, I believe, but it's been a nice, I've got to say, it's been a nice afternoon. Stuart, we get a wet one tomorrow, but I have a great day today, so I'm back on time with all my jobs. I'm ready for next Saturday's plant sale. Now we are over £17,000 for the Brain Tumour Charity. Fantastic, £17,000. That's a good amount of money. Is this your first sale for the year as well, Stuart, next week? Turbo Stream says, I will probably spend a bit of tomorrow sorting my camping gear out after my 350-mile one-nighter in Pembrokeshire. Yeah, that's the trouble with weather and camping, isn't it? You never know what it's going to do. That's why I like the camper van. It's not the most comfortablest, but I like the camper van because I can. It doesn't really matter the weather unless it's really, really bad. But hey, it's all good fun. Now, just let me finish off this show tonight. As you or many of us have got that extra day off tomorrow, not everybody, but if you're not working tomorrow, what are you going to be doing tomorrow in the garden or the allotment? I am going to be sowing these wildflower seeds that we've spoken about tonight and installing this wildflower pond. Hopefully, I'm going to get the chance to mow the paths, as we're going to call it. And then when it rains from the morning or from mid-morning onwards, I'm going to be in the greenhouse. I want to pot up my cucumbers. I want to pot up my sweet peas. I want to pot up a great number of plants and get those ready or get those growing, basically. And added to that, I need to sow a lot more seeds as well. I think a great number of us are struggling with space at the moment, which is the joys of our allotments, isn't it? Absolutely. Jenny says raining means more seed sowing. Next batch of successions need to be sown and sunflowers need to be sown ASAP. I love seed sowing. Yeah, I mean, what I've got to admit, as I said, I spend an hour in the morning. What I usually do is sow some seeds and pot up in the morning, but I'm starting to move on to more weeding. Can't do any noisy jobs, of course, because that's not fair on our neighbours at that time in the morning. Stuart Jackson says, sale number 2, £150 raised last month. Hoping for 200 plus on this sale. £200, fantastic. Turbo Stream says, I love my camper van too. Yeah, sorry, buddy. I do remember what happened to your camper van too. Not nice. Tomorrow I'll be writing label out for Saturday. It's going to be very wet indeed, but hey. Nicola's joined. Sorry I'm late. Lovely to see you, Nicola. We've been talking about, are you doing No Mow May in order to encourage wildlife? And as tomorrow for most of us is an extra day off, what are you doing in the garden tomorrow? After work, I'll be sowing a lot of second sowings to keep my plot productive. Yep, I'm all about the second sowings too as well. So radish. I'm sowing radish on a weekly basis at the moment, on the plan is. Just sowing 12 seeds each week to keep us going. Anna says, fabulous to Stuart Jackson. £17,000 is fantastic indeed. Indeed it is. Turbo Stream says, I need to pot up a wigwam for a few runner beans. So a row of beetroot this week on the plot. The grass paths will need strimming after the rain. Yeah, again, I know exactly what you're talking about. Nicholas says, I haven't mowed for 1.5 years yet, at all, not just May. Excuse me. Excellent. Do you notice a lot of wildlife in your garden? A lot of wildlife. Turbo Stream says radish too and lettuce. Yeah, I've got to do lettuce tomorrow. I've got to do radish. I've got to make a list of everything I need to do tomorrow. But it's going to be a great day. I've got to say that. I'll make the most of it while it is dry. But I'm looking forward to moving on with the garden. One thing I spoke about that I'm doing, and I've actually set up, is a straw bale garden. I think it was you guys or somebody in the live show who said that when they did straw bale garden, they found it difficult to keep the straw wet. So suggested starting to add water to it a lot earlier. I've got to say, I've had my straw bales out in the garden for a while, been watering them for the last couple of weeks on a daily basis. But I stuck my finger into the straw and it's surprising just how moist it really is. So I'm really looking forward to trying straw bale gardening this year. Really think it is going to be a great, great success. Nicola says, need to get the ride-on battery charged and have a go this year. I can't remember, is it 3 acres you've got, Nicola? I remember seeing a picture of it. A huge, huge area of farmland and so much space. So I'm not surprised you need a ride-on mower. Or as Adrian says, get the cows in there, and the sheep in there to do the job for you. Oh, that's what Adrian does. He says he does. Indeed. I've just realised I haven't actually... Oh, wrong one. I've just realised I haven't actually put up the zap-in code. If anybody wanted to zap in for the last 10 minutes. I just completely forgot about that, I'm sorry to say. Nicola says, I have loads of wildlife, loads of bunnies and newts and frogs and bees. No bunnies in my direct garden now, thankfully. Did you have to rescue a bunny last week or something? How did that get on? I might be wrong in that, but I have a vague recollection of something. In 3.6 acres she has. I would love that amount of land, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? The amount of stuff I would do with a huge amount of land. One day it will happen. It will become my nursery, is the plan. If I can just... It won't be around here, I don't think, though. Price of land around here is so expensive. To do that sort of thing would cost me about 3 million, I think it is. Jenny says, I need more cardboard. Do you think the brown cardboard used to keep apples separate in supermarket boxes will be okay? Or do I need to order something huge, a certain online shop, starting with A? What are you looking to do with your cardboard? I don't think it matters. I know the Amazon cardboard uses biodegradable sellotape. The apple, I'm not sure what you mean, the brown cardboard used to separate apples. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I know the apple crates are fine, depending on what you want to do with them, that is. I throw a load of cardboard down on the allotment at the moment to, built the 2 new beds, and I'm just using cardboard to start off. We'll cover it over with compost, and that'll be sweet corn growing area this year. 2 beds sweet corn. Might throw in some tomatoes as well, because we're growing lots of tomatoes this year. Digwell says all cardboard is okay these days. There we go. I thought it might be. I did think it might be. I know some of that brown parcel tape, if you have that on your boxes, might be a bit of a problem, but most cardboard is okay. Bunny is doing very well. No limb now, but too small to release yet. Oh, poor thing. Poor thing. Did you have to take it to a vet, Nicola? I'm guessing you did, actually. Jenny says to make new no-dig beds, they have sculpted cardboard in the boxes to keep the apples separate. Oh, you mean almost like egg crate cardboards? Yeah, I think it'll be okay. I think it will be okay. Stuart Jackson says, I need to sow some more runner beans as I've already got orders for all that I have grown so far. Also, French beans should sell, so that could be another job for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm growing, actually, talking of runner beans. I'm not a fan of runner beans, if I'm honest with you, but my wife does love them. I'm actually growing in the Veggie-Pod dwarf runner beans. And what I reckon in a Veggie-Pod, they would do quite well. Nicholas says flat cardboard that they use in the supermarket between large water pot bottles are good. No tape or staples. Yeah, staples are something to be cautious of. When I was making paper pots years and years ago, because I don't bother anymore, but when I did make paper pots, I got myself a stapler because I was so worried about eating a carrot or something and then ending up eating a staple and breaking a tooth on it or something. So oh god, the seat's not very comfortable today. So I got stapler to make up for it. Nicholas says this poor rabbit, no vets. I have the odd cuddle from the rabbit. Yeah. And then Digwell says, if it is touching food, talking about cardboard, it is okay. Kind of that's the theory I go with. If it's touching food, if it's involved in food, then generally speaking, it is going to be okay. But yeah, it's all. Stuart Jackson says, cardboards, talk to your local supermarket. I'm sure they would be happy to help. I mean, cardboard is so easily available. I mean, I know I use the black weed suppressor membrane, but I would probably actually, in all honesty, if I didn't have any black suppressor membrane, I would use cardboard instead. Cycle shops are a good place to go. You have to remove the staples, but they have the big cardboard boxes that are usually only too happy to get rid of. And they are big. They cover a nice sized bed if you can get hold of those. So that's something that I do enjoy or do use. I get a lot of cardboard at work as well, so I'm always throwing cardboard down, or always able to get hold of cardboard. Nicholas says they say don't recycle gloss cardboard as plastic in it. I think that definitely was the case in the olden days, but nowadays, as more and more cardboard manufacturers are a bit more eco-friendly, like a lot of the inks and stuff they use even on magazines and newspapers are vegetable-based inks. So I think even the gloss cardboard, it's not so much of a problem anymore because it's more biodegradable, more friendly, as I understand it. I'm no scientist, no expert. It's just what I have read. Thank you, Digwell. I will head to the shops then. I tried asking for boxes. They sell them to recycling, but I noticed they were throwing the apple separation card. have a word with a lot of places. I say, I know cycle shops are a good one to go to. The boxes crisps coming are big, and also the outer around sugar pop bottles too is another idea. And Nicholas says you can buy heavy duty starch paper on a roll. Takes 3 to 4 years to break down. Comes in 50-meter rolls. I've never heard of that. I will look into that as well. I mean, at the moment, a black weed suppressor membrane is about 10 years old. It is still okay. It's starting to fray a little bit and it's not going to last forever, but it's 10 years old at the moment. And I tend to only use it over winter when beds are bare. And I haven't got any, when you sometimes have plants that are removed a bit too late, vegetable plants, a bit too late to get any green manures in. That's when it usually comes into play. Lido and Aldi are give it away happy. This is cardboard. And Liz Zarab uses a starch paper, I think. Jenny says, I normally have loads of cardboards, but I've made so many new dig beds, I've run out. Yeah, I know that problem. As I say, I get so much from work because we get parts arrive in cardboard boxes. That what I usually do when I finish it, I break it all down and keep it in the back of a van, and then I'll take it to the allotment. Normally on a Friday, I'll just sort the back of the van out down on the allotment and put all that cardboard. If I can't put it on a bed, it'll go into the shed to be used over the winter. And then I'll throw manure compost on top. This is going to be a subject that's probably going to come up in the future. Making compost and making a lot of compost is a real struggle. To make enough compost for an allotment. Real struggle, isn't it, without inputs from other places. And Digwell says shiny card is okay these days. Plastic finish stopped a few years ago. That's what I thought. I think they stopped adding plastic in it a few years ago because it's just, well, when all that plastic kicked off, it was just considered not good to use. So they went back to, as I understand it, like a vegetable based inks, and I can't think what they use to add that sort of shiny cover to it, but it is something that is biodegradable these days. I mean, pretty much everything now has to be biodegradable. It just makes sense, I think, for that. Jenny says, I think the ink is vegetable ink based. Yep, definitely that. Toby String, as we have loads of leaves delivered to my plot, is covered in them. I mulch everywhere. I would love to get leaves delivered to our allotment. They just don't do it. We had wood chip delivered to our allotment recently, and that's gone down very well. And I think the council was starting to learn that that's what they could do with it. Nicholas says, my other duck that I thought the fox had got the chicken actually flew and has been sighted on several occasions around my village. Got close twice, but still on the loose, trying to make her way home. Oh, bless. So your duck is trying to find a way home. Bless her. I'd love to keep ducks as well. Digwell says Calon clay is used. There we go, Calon clay or whatever it is to give the finish on the card. I knew there was something like that, something biodegradable. This is why I love the group. We all help each other, and I learn something every week thanks to all. Indeed, this is why I love the group as well, because we have this chance to have a chat, share our ideas, and share our what we've been up to, all about gardening. As I said, next week is going to be a good one if you want to share your time-saving tips. I've got quite a few ideas of time-saving tips that I have, but I want to hear yours as well. And I think because May is such a busy time, this is going to be the time that we want to really save a lot of time. So that's going to be next week's subject, if you are ready or available for that. I will put Kate, I'm sorry, Kate, if you are still watching, I'm sorry that your video hasn't gone up there for some reason, but I will put your video up next week because of, I don't know why it hasn't gone up. Turbo Stream says, hopefully we'll see you at Malva next Sunday. Digwell, need to buy a ticket. Yes, it's Malvern next week, so I'm sure many of you are going to be busy. It'd be great to see, if possible, a few photos from Malvern. Gardener's World next month as well at Birmingham. I'm sorting out the tickets for that, and in Audley End House as well. I'm looking to go to that in September. Anyway, right. Just to finish off, Digwell says all the inks are natural starch based these days, not plastic. Yep. My new compost bays are 4x5 by 6 feet. Now has a tin roof and pallet surrounds with pallets, just divides on fronts and guttering for IBC. Nicholas says, I'm in Sussex next week. Give us a shout. Give us a shout if you are nearby. What am I doing next weekend? Yeah, give us a shout if you are nearby, Nicola. I doubt I'll be back in time to post photos. Yeah, I thought that might be the case. But if you are there, I can't remember if you're exhibiting, so you might be there a few days before. Anybody else that goes there, please feel free to send photos. It will be good to see. Right, guys, time to go. I am absolutely starving. I haven't had any dinner yet. We will be back again next Sunday at 6 and said tips and time-saving tips for next week. Get your ideas I have written down and ready to share. You take care, guys. I'll see you again next time.